mistaken to be a relative of the zebra thanks to their beautiful striped hind legs there, which I like to call their party pants. However, they are in fact the only known relative of the giraffe, which we can tell by looking at the structure of their skulls and their incredibly long tongues. Greater kudu on either side of us now. We can tell that they're female because they do not have any horns, but the horns on the male can reach a whopping 6 feet long. And folks, that orangey brown antelope up there on the left-hand side to the left of the greater kudu is a bongo. A bongo does receive the nickname the ghost of the forest because they are rarely seen, and when they are seen, they like to move silently through the trees, kind of sneak up on us every now and then. Whereas the okapi, the one with the striped legs on the hill on the right-hand side, was originally nicknamed the African unicorn before they were discovered by Westerners in the year 1901. That's because their existence was believed to be a myth. However, their existence was, of course, known to the native African populations who had lived among them for generations before that. They're also known to communicate infrasonically as well, which is just a fancy way of saying at a frequency below the level of human hearing. So they like to tell each other little secrets that we humans just can't hear. Let's see what else we can spot on here today. Be sure to keep an eye on that spotting guide above your head and our beautiful surroundings as well. Let's look up ahead of you on the left-hand side. We're going to get a pretty good look at some saddle-billed storks. See how close we can get here. The saddle-billed stork is a beautiful black and white bird. They do have a wingspan of up to 9 feet wide. That's just about the width of the truck that we're sitting on right now, so very, very wide indeed. The only way to tell the difference between a male and a female saddle-billed stork by looking at one is to look at the color of their eyes. A bit far away to tell right now. The males will always have brown eyes and females will always have yellow eyes. Unlike other birds which tweet or chirp, the saddle-billed stork communicates merely by rattling their bills. And they do mate for life as well. And folks, we're only about 2 minutes into our safari adventure. We've gotten pretty lucky so far today, so let's hope that our great luck only continues up ahead here. Now, there is a bit of a fork in the road here, but I think I'll take you folks down toward the Safi River, which is an important water source to the animals of the forest. One animal to keep your eyes on for in this area is the Nile hippo. They can hold their breath for up to 8 minutes at a time underwater, and they like to sleep down there as well. Usually it's a bit cooler for them temperature-wise than up here on land. Now, if you look behind me there on the right-hand side, we'll see 2 hippos sleeping just under the surface of the water there. Not the best view of them down there, so we're going to keep on going, see if we can find some more up ahead that are a bit easier to spot. Up ahead here on the right-hand side, though, we're going to see some pink-backed pelicans. They get their name from the delicate pink coloring that appears on the skin of their backs during mating season, almost like they're blushing, and they do prefer to feed in quiet backwaters like these. Let's keep our eyes out for some more hippos in the area. Look over here to the left-hand side. We'll see a whole bunch more there to the left of the island. Now, the Nile hippo can swim, but they do prefer to walk or run along the bottom of the river. So be sure to keep your eyes out for any additional gliding objects down here that might look like big submerged rocks till they start to move. And they will come fully onto the banks of the river, mainly at nighttime, to kind of graze for their food, and they are certainly not an animal you want to mess with up here on land. Believe it or not, they can charge at speeds of up to 35 miles an hour. For reference, we're currently charged at a longitude of a solid 5 miles an hour, so they would certainly beat us in a race, no doubt about it. Now, the name for a group of hippos is a bloat, and the name for a group of pelicans happens to be a pod. So that is also a pod of pink-backed pelicans we saw back there. And look across the water there on the left-hand side, we'll see a Nile crocodile. A couple more in the waters down below as well. The Nile crocodile can reach lengths of between 10 and 20 feet long. That's just about as long as the giraffe is tall. And folks, they do mainly eat fish, but they are known to eat anything and everything that comes their path. So not sure about you, but I certainly don't want to be sticking around here for too long, that's for sure. As a matter of fact, let's get out of here. We are going to be leaving the river now. We're going to head on down toward the savannah. Now, unlike those shy and reclusive animals we've encountered thus far, the animals out on the savannah like to rely on their speed and agility oftentimes to catch their prey. And I gotta tell you folks, they're usually just a tad easier for us to spot out there as well, in the wide open grasslands of our reserve. An early sign that we're approaching that savannah will be this tree coming up here on the right-hand side. It's known as the baobab tree, nicknamed the upside-down tree. The baobab will remain leafless up to 9 months out of the year, and they can store up to 30,000 gallons of water in its trunk, which can be incredibly useful during the intense periods of drought out here. Kind of like a big natural water tower. In the meantime, though, just like that, looks like we made it out onto the savannah, which is home to some of Africa's most famous animals, such as lions, giraffes, and zebras, to name just a few. And once again, be sure to keep an eye on that animal spotting guide above your head in the truck, and of course another eye on our beautiful surroundings here. And let's see what we can spot out here together today. And one thing I might notice right away is that we can see a Maasai giraffe all the way out there in the distance. And That makes sense because you can look at the leaves on these trees to our right-hand side and notice that they're starting at all about the same height off the ground. That's because it's about as high as the tallest giraffe out here can reach. The Maasai giraffe does have quite the appetite. They spend up to 15 hours a day just eating, and each and every giraffe eats about 75 pounds of leaves a day, each and every day. Very, very hungry animals indeed. Out there on the right-hand side, we're going to see some springboks as well. You might have seen one or two there. They're the very tiny antelopes that you might have spotted by the giraffe. They're the smallest antelope out here. They measure only 3 feet tall at the shoulder, but despite their small size, they can jump up to 6 feet high and up to 13 feet across in just one single leap. It is for their highly agile nature that the springbok is named the national animal of the country of South Africa, and the mascot of many sports teams out there as well, so do keep your eyes out for some more springboks in the area. Meantime, over there to the left-hand side, we'll see some African wild dogs hanging out in and around their den, and over here to the right-hand side, we'll see an Ankoli cow. Now, folks, despite their name, the wild dog is actually closer related to the fox than to the domestic dogs you might have at home. And don't be fooled by their seemingly gentle and restful nature there on the left. They are, in fact, the world's top apex predator. They've got an 80 to 90% success rate in catching their prey, which makes them a whole lot more than twice as lethal as the big cats, including the lions, who, for example, have just a 10% success rate in catching their own prey. But they are pretty adorable when they're not hunting. Over here on the left-hand side, we'll see some more Ankoli cattle, and behind the Ankoli cattle, we'll see some sable antelopes back there by the trees. They're the official emblem of the reserve for their highly territorial nature. And folks, the huge horns on the cattle here can reach 6 feet tip to tip. They are mainly hollow on the inside, though blood does flow into and out of those horns to help cool down the body temperature of the cattle. Fancy word for that is thermoregulation. And to get a bit closer to that giraffe out there, we're going to pass by these termite mounds. The termite mounds are as strong as concrete. They can reach heights of 20 feet tall, and they're made of a mix of soil, saliva, and dung. Not sure if dung would have been my #1 choice for a building material, but perhaps my #2. They aren't only used by termites. Elephants also like to grind their tusks up against them, and once they're ground down far enough, antelopes like to stand on them. Folks, the Maasai giraffe can reach heights of 17 feet tall, and they're well known for their incredibly long prehensile tongues, which can reach lengths of 18 inches long, about the length from the tip of your pointer finger all the way up to your elbow. And prehensile is just a fancy word that means they use their tongues the same way that we humans use our fingers. So they're going to use those tongues to kind of grasp at leaves and twigs above their heads, and they also use those tongues to clean out their own eyes and ears. Not sure how tasty that would be, but that's just me. Now we get a clear view of the springboks from earlier. These are the ones that can jump 6 feet high and 13 feet across. They're the tiny little antelopes by the trees here. And we'll see another Maasai giraffe here on the right-hand side too. Now the Maasai giraffe is a restless creature. They sleep only about 30 minutes a day. And that's not all at once either, just a couple short naps that add up to 30 minutes total. They're going to sleep standing up or sitting down, but never fully laying down. That's because they always like to remain at least semi-aware of their surroundings, just in case of potential predators in the area. Though they are gentle giants, these Maasai giraffes certainly have very powerful kicks when they're provoked. Up ahead here by the tall grasses on the right-hand side, we're going to see several wildebeest. And the name for a group of wildebeest is a confusion or an implausibility. And that's because when one wildebeest starts to run, all the others will start running too, even if they're not quite sure why they're running or where they're running. They do, however, migrate up to 1,000 miles during their migration season, and at one point the dust cloud from that migration could be seen from space. Now the baby wildebeest can be up and running with the confusion only 15 minutes after they're born. That's because they're usually born during their migration season, and in just a bit of a tough love approach, they've got no choice but to keep up with that confusion or be left behind. Now the Maasai giraffe over here is the left-hand side. Now the Maasai giraffe does give birth standing up. That means that the very first thing each and every baby giraffe experiences is a 6 to 8 foot drop to the ground. Of course, though it is that drops to the ground, that will kind of shock that baby giraffe into taking its very first breath of life. So when you think of it that way, it really is a beautiful thing. Just don't try it at home. Now, folks, we have certainly gotten very lucky so far. We're about halfway through the reserve. Bear in mind the Harambe Wildlife Reserve is 110 acres. That's big enough to fit all of Disney's Magic Kingdom and its parking lot. So these animals do certainly have quite a big home to roam around in, that's for sure. Let's cross our fingers, hope our luck is just as great in the second half as it has been in the first. I do see a watering hole up ahead here. I was going to tell you to keep your eyes out for some elephants in the area, folks, but look directly over here to the right-hand side. A beautiful view of an African elephant right here on the right.
Oh, here's that one right here, bud.
That one there to the right is probably a male based on the fact that he's alone. The males are usually just a tad more solitary and introverted than their more social and outgoing female counterparts. And they do like to hang out near bodies of water, like this one here on the right-hand side. They'll dip their trunks into the water, suck up as much of it as they can, and splash it all onto their backs or drink it all down. Either way helps keep them cool or hydrated on a hot and late summer's day like today. Now we're going to keep going. We're getting closer and closer to elephant country out here, so keep your eyes out for some more elephants in the area, and I'll keep mine out as well. I will tell you though, it's getting very rare for us to see an elephant out in the wild. They're facing poaching for their beautiful ivory tusks, and they're also facing habitat destruction. And their homes are being destroyed at an alarming rate, which is pushing those elephants closer and closer to human environments against their will. As a matter of fact, the elephants out here on the reserve have actually been seen crossing over this very bridge out here in front of us. An elephant does weigh up to 14,000 pounds when fully grown, but to be quite honest with you, it looks like they might have caused just a bit of damage to this bridge since the last time I crossed over it. Pipes are being held together with ropes and zip ties here, and it certainly wasn't making any creaking noises the last time I crossed over, that's for sure. Only slightly concerning. Luckily for us, we didn't make it across okay. That would not have been a fun start to the day. But of course, it actually does make sense that elephants were seen crossing that bridge, because it only brings them closer to these red clay pits here. The elephants like to eat the clay right off these clay pits. Might not look so appetizing to us, but it does provide them with a ton of nutrients. Look here to the right-hand side, we'll see some tusk marks and footprints left over the clay from breakfast this morning. So let's see if we can spot some more elephants out here. Matter of fact, folks, a bit hard to see, but if you look toward the base of that baobab tree way out there in front of us to the left-hand side, we'll see a couple sets of flapping ears out there. Those ears are the world's best built-in fan, or should I say ear conditioning. When an elephant flaps their ears, they can cool down their body temperature up to 15 whole degrees Fahrenheit. Fancy word for that is thermoregulation. Now it's hard to tell when an African elephant's ears are always kind of flapping and moving about like that, but they are shaped pretty similar to the continent of Africa. And believe it or not, an Asian elephant's ears are also shaped pretty similar to the continent of Asia as well. Just a pretty cool coincidence. Now while both male and female African elephants have tusks, over in Asia only the male elephants will have tusks. That's another good way to tell them apart. Besides, of course, being in Africa versus being in Asia. And another reason why the elephants like hanging out by the clay pits is because they have very sensitive skin. Might not look that way on the surface, but it is in fact truly very sensitive. So they'll head back there to the clay pits, kind of rub some of that clay right onto their backs. It's going to help to act as a natural sunblock for them. And they are very intelligent animals indeed. Since they also eat that clay from the clay pits, I guess you could say that makes them one of the only animals to eat their sunblock. Now, of course, they're hiding right behind the shade of this baobab tree here on the left-hand side. You can see just a glimpse of them there as we start to enter this watering hole. But they are trying to get into any shade that they can get into. Let's see what else lies ahead for us here. We're going to see a whole big group of flamingos coming up here on the left-hand side. Now the name for a group of flamingos is a flamboyance, and these are the greater flamingos here to the left, the lightest pink of the flamingo species. They'll get that pink coloring from the brine shrimp that they love to eat, which is high in beta-carotene. The baby flamingo will hatch gray, and it's going to take up to 1 full year for them to start receiving that pink coloring. But by the time they reach about their 2nd birthday, they're usually fully grown and fully pink as well. In the meantime, though, the area that we're entering now is known as the Mud Wallow, which is a favorite savanna ecosystem of the white rhinos on the reserve. Now, the white rhinos do share that same sensitive skin as the elephants, but since they lack those prehensile trunks that make it so easy for elephants to rub clay onto their own backs, the white rhinos instead prefer to roll around in this big old puddle of mud around the corner from us here on the left-hand side. You'll see a couple white rhinos right across the way there on the left if you shield your eyes from the sun. Looks like we got 2 of them out there, and that does look to be a mother white rhino and her baby out there on the left-hand side. That's simply a adorable sight. Due to poaching for their horns, there are only 20,000 white rhinos left in the whole world, but we're very lucky to say that we've had 3 baby white rhinos going on here in just the past 3 years. So we are very intent on keeping them around the species for as long as we can. And looks as you get closer and closer to these white rhinos here, believe it or not, they cannot see us one bit. They can only see about 10 feet in front of their faces, and what they can see is mainly shadow. That's why I find it quite appropriate that the name for a group of rhinos is a crash. Out in the wild, they're always crashing into each other and their environments as well. And folks, looks like we're stuck in a bit of a safari traffic jam here. As you can tell, this is these animals' homes, and if one of those animals would like to cross the road, stand on the road, sit down on the road, lay down on the road, take a nap on the road, we have just got to let them. That ostrich on our left-hand side was just right in the middle of the road.
Oh, that's nice.
So that's why we were stopped there for a second. But we're going to see that ostrich up ahead here on the left-hand side. But folks, in the meantime, though, if you look over here on your right-hand side, very hard to see, but there are some white rhinos up there on the hill on the right. So they're napping up there. That's right, those are cheetahs there on the hill on the left-hand side too. So we're interrupting a bit of a town meeting here. Cheetahs, rhinos, and an ostrich. And the cheetah is the fastest land animal. They can charge at speeds of 60 miles an hour and attain that speed in just 3 seconds from a standing position. Of course, the cheetah is a sprinter, not a marathon runner, so they can only sustain that speed for a couple hundred yards before tiring out. And folks, the ostrich is the largest of the bird species. But despite their large wings, they are, of course, flightless birds. Now, it's a bit hard to tell on the truck because we are about 8 feet off the ground on this truck. But that ostrich is, I would say, about 5.5 feet tall. So just about as tall as the average adult human. Or the average human, I guess, in general. In the meantime, though, speaking of big cats, we're coming up on the Kopi Rock Formation here. You might just recognize these rocks from the Lion King. Lions do love to lay on these rocks because they provide an excellent vantage point from which to view potential prey. Might just be able to hear a lion before we can see one today. A lion's roar can be heard up to 5 miles away. But if we don't happen to see any lions today, that could just be because they're resting. Lions do sleep between 16 and 20 hours a day, each and every day. Look over there on the left-hand side, though. A beautiful view of that male lion on that shady rock there. And we do have a bit of a celebrity in our midst, because that male lion up on that rock was the model for Simba in the live-action remake of The Lion King just a couple years back. Not sure about you, but I am certainly starstruck, even though he's kind of sleeping through our meet and greet this morning. And you'll notice a lioness on his other side there. Now, the name for a group of lions is a pride, and the females of that pride will do the majority of the hunting. They're going to gather together in small groups at night and hunt their prey as a team, while the male lion will stay back to guard the cubs and protect the habitat from potential invasion. And the lions are mainly nocturnal animals. That's because their eyesight is just about as good as ours is during the daytime, but once the sun goes down, their eyesight can be up to 6 times better than ours is at night. And yes, every single animal in the reserve does have a name, but folks, the lions do respond to their names so well that I do not want to say the name over the microphone right now, because it might just wake them up and it'll look to be so peaceful there. Oh, here on the left-hand side, we're going to see some warthogs. Looks like Pumbaa must have bought some real estate near Sid Benmala. And the warthog is the largest burrowing animal, and they like to reuse burrows made by other animals. They also like to completely bury their entire bodies in mud, which will help protect against intense heat and insects as well. And we did see an ostrich earlier, and one of the ostriches on our reserve has laid some eggs recently, which we are very, very excited about. We're going to see these eggs up ahead here on the right-hand side. I'll point them out to you in just a bit once we pass by them. Now look just down this dirt road here that branches off from us on the right-hand side. And right down this dirt road on the grass to the right of the road, we'll see those 6 eggs there in the shade. And they're incredibly strong and incredibly heavy as well. The average adult human could stand on one of those with their full body weight and not even crack it. And one ostrich egg weighs about the same as 24 chicken eggs. So very, very strong and quite heavy indeed. In the meantime, though, we are leaving the savannah now, but we do have just one more stop to make before we head back to the village, and that stop is in Magadi Glen, which we're entering now. Magadi Glen is home to the post of our reserve warden, which we can see up ahead here through the trees. The reserve warden is in charge of taking care of all the animals out here on the reserve, a very important responsibility. And as we get a bit closer, it seems as though the warden has domesticated some Nigerian dwarf goats. And these might look like cute little baby goats here. The wardens are out on the left-hand side, but they are in fact fully grown adults. This is about as big as they're going to get, hence their name, dwarf goats. They are one of 2 commonly domesticated animals that live out here on the reserve, the other being the Angoli cattle with the huge horns that we saw earlier back on the savannah. And they're domesticated by the villagers of Harambe for their milk, which has a very sweet taste and is beneficial to us villagers both nutritionally and financially. A bit hard to tell because they're just waking up for the day, but they're also known for their highly playful nature. And it's that playful nature with each other that's going to help them to establish dominance within the group. In the meantime, it looks like we're approaching the outskirts of Harambe village once again, which means that our time together is sadly coming to a close. However, just because you're leaving the reserve today does not mean that your part in helping these animals and their habitats has to end just yet. Acts as simple as recycling goods made from plastic products and conserving energy and water whenever and wherever you can go a surprisingly long way to help make sure that the animals we were all lucky enough to see today not only continue to survive out there in the wild, but of course continue to thrive and prosper as well. The beauty of all these decks is that they can all be done from wherever in the world you happen to live, and they can all be done starting today. And folks, we will be bypassing 2 unloading docks ahead of us. We will not be coming to a full and complete stop at either of those docks. Instead, I'll drop the wheels up right back to where we started from, so you can all be much closer to your scooters and wheelchairs. So just sit tight for a couple more minutes, and I'll be folks back there as soon as possible. And once again, folks, my name is Ryan E, and it has been my absolute pleasure to be your safari